Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Adam. Ship my money share. And wait for it, this is Friday. MLB that we're talking about. That's right. Dan Strafford out on vacation all week. Adam and Laffy changing up days so Laffy could watch the Philadelphia 76ers and play in his own hockey game. Adam just because he's a general all-around good guy. And then me, I'm here because I'm a sucker. There you go.
Yeah. Also because Lofty did me a favor and covered on Monday. Otherwise, no chance in hell this would have happened.
Yes. Well, I'm covering for Dan now, but then I'm covering for Lofty next Thursday. So we're doing more musical chairs. So you'll get me and Dan will be working together here at some point. So I think
it might be you and Dan next Friday also.
There we are. So this will be a mix and match. It'll be a good time.
Dan doesn't know that yet, but
there we go. Well, I've done solo Fridays the last couple, so we got it covered no matter what. But we got a 14 gamer here. So how we are going to approach this, because we do have four MLB shows on the YouTube channel tomorrow. So at 9:15 or 9:30, they're going to do game-by-game breakdown of everything. There's 2 o'clock game. Around lunchtime, probably 12:30, there's going to be a Yahoo-centric show that we're going to focus on Yahoo and talk about their tournaments and pricing, because, of course, they are a sponsor now here of Awesemo. And then there will be the deep dive, because it's a full slate. I'm guessing you guys will start at 4:45. And then, of course, live before lock will take you up that last 65 minutes. So not to fear, we're going to hammer this slate a bunch of different ways. Plus, we've got the deep dive article by Laffy. That'll be behind the paywall. We've got cheat sheets. We have projections. We have rankings from Alex. We have ownership projections. We got everything. So not to fear, we got you covered. But Adam and I were just chuckling pre-show because we talked about 8 pitchers yesterday and 2 of them switched. So it's like, good God. Not a good percentage, but we've got 28 to talk about in this one here. So we'll just kind of start in. We'll go through the top. We're just going to give some of our thoughts on each of the guys. It may take us down a bit of a rabbit hole. We've got the pricing set up, etc., are pulled up for the 3 sites. So we'll look to give you guys early advice on that. But if we start out here with Yahoo, and we look at their main slate, you've got Justin Verlander at 56, Jose Berrios at 49, Corey Kluber at 49, and then it drops down to the mid-40s where you have a passel of guys. And this is where you want to be careful over on Yahoo, and you want to find your own edge because it's tremendous. So these guys are all separated by $1. Charlie Morton, Carlos Rodon, German Marquez, Aníbal Sánchez, Madison Bumgarner. There are skill sets all over the place. There are matchups all over the place. There's potential weather for those guys that can lead to some wildly crazy outcomes. And, would you have thought that those 5 would be right next to each other? I would not have, Adam. But that's the unique animal that we have over here at Yahoo. Just hitting the top for calibration purposes. At the other sides, DK, Berrios is 1, Verlander, Bumgarner, Kluber, Stripling, German Marquez, Carlos Rodon. Hits you through the top 7 on FanDuel. Yet another different order. You got Verlander, Berrios, Bumgarner, Kluber, Morton, Rodon. So kind of the similar groups of guys, Stripling, Marquez, etc. But there'll have to be some spots we're going to look out for. There's some storms here up and down the East Coast. There is no game in Washington and Baltimore. Both are on... there is one in Baltimore. So we're going to have to worry about Baltimore. DC area is projected to have somewhere between 1 and 2 inches of rain over the next 36 hours. That does encompass Baltimore. Pittsburgh, not that far away either. It's in the secondary weather pattern. They're having some potential issues. New York is as well. And then in the Midwest, we're going to have to keep an eye out on Cleveland. So tons of stuff to watch out for. But that's what makes this kind of fun. Adam, take it from the top here. Let's start off with comparing a couple of these top guys. Verlander is the clear guy with Berrios, as they're both trading off being number 1 or number 2 on all the sites. Let's assume the weather's going to go in Baltimore. How would you calibrate Berrios and Verlander?
I would still have Verlander ahead of Berrios. I just think he's a better pitcher. The matchup for Berrios obviously is a little bit better, a little less dangerous against Baltimore. Hitters park for both, but just not a lot in the Baltimore lineup to worry about. But in addition to thinking that Verlander is still just a bit better than Berrios, a little bit of a downgrade for me just because Berrios has consistently just been so much worse on the road than at home. I don't know the reason for it, and that generally means that I don't factor it in too much, and that's the case here. But, again, as kind of a tiebreaker between him and Verlander, the fact that for, the 2 or 3 years he's been in the major leagues, he has walked a lot more guys on the road. He struck out less. He gives up more home runs. His WOBA allowed is much higher. That's enough of a tiebreaker for me to, give the slight edge to Verlander.
All right. Walking down the list a little bit more, you've got Corey Kluber, who has just been, he carries the and I'm going to toss out Tuki Toussaint. He carries the number one strikeout rate dating back to the beginning of the 2017 season against fellow righties at 30%. Verlander's at 27. Herman Marquez is at 30. Caleb Smith up there. Of course, that's lefty righty, so he's a bit of an anomaly, but he's at the 27. Against lefties, that's where Kluber is still pretty darn solid, 29.3%. He is behind just Verlander and Eduardo Rodríguez there. Oh, and Drew Smyly, but we're not going to count his six batters faced. That to me feels like small sample size there, Adam. What do we want to do here with Kluber, because he has been a little bit confounding here and there this season.
Right. It's weird because he hasn't really been that good this season, but at the same time, he is still getting some strikeouts, and this is just one of the cheaper price points that we will get for Kluber. $9,000 on DraftKings, so $1,400 less than Verlander, $1,800 less than Berrios. He's $49 on Yahoo, so $7 less than Verlander, and $2 or the same price as Berrios. So on Yahoo, I'd rather just go to Berrios than go to Kluber, but on DraftKings, you get that pricing difference, and it is appealing in tournaments at least. I don't like taking pitchers against Atlanta, but Kluber still has the track record of just being such a good pitcher. Atlanta right now with only a 3.4 implied run total, supposed to be nice and cold in Cleveland, so the ball shouldn't carry. Looks like there's a chance the wind's blowing in too. I like Kluber at that price point, even though the matchup scares me.
All right, I'm looking here at the Cleveland weather. Looking at Baltimore, just to set the stage, looks like it's going to start to rain around 3 o'clock, Adam, with some pretty heavy thunderstorms. That's going to continue for about 24 hours. Now, there could be some windows here and there. We'll have to see what happens, what they do, but that one is, my guess is that one is not going to go. Looking here at, there's a 40 to 50% chance of scattered thunderstorms, and then increasing wind and showers into the evening hours. That is meaning heading into the midnight hour. That's Cleveland. So we'll have to see what happens. Again, we're 22 hours out. Things can change. Things can slow down. Things can disappear. But there looks like we will have some weather in play for us as we cruise on down to a couple of these other guys. Madison Bumgarner stands out a little bit. He's one of our weather guys that's sitting in Pittsburgh. But just general thoughts, because it looks like in all these places, it looks like Saturday should be fine. So they're going to, my guess is, even if it's not double headers, Adam, they're going to push these pitchers back. So the analysis will still hold. But how are you liking Bumgarner? He hasn't been horrible. That's about the best summary that I have of him. The numbers are okay. They're not eye-popping. He is being priced like he's eye-popping Madison Bumgarner, but he's only disappointed in one start thus far this season.
Yeah, I don't really have interest in going to either of these pitchers on this slate because I don't feel the need to pay more money for Madison Bumgarner than for Corey Kluber. That's just absolutely insane to me. Jordan Lyles isn't a bad pitcher, but despite posting a monster game recently, he's not a high strikeout guy either. I don't really feel the need to pay $7,900 for him either. So this game's kind of just a cross-off.
All right. Well, let's we'll save Coors Field for a moment here, but let's go on to Miami. You have Aníbal Sánchez going back to where it all started for him. On the other side, you have Caleb Smith. We know that the Nationals have a fair number of righties that are relatively solid. They have a lot of good hitters in their lineup, but this is a Park downgrade for them. Would you consider Sanchez or Smith in this matchup? Because there won't be weather issues unless there's a roof leak.
Yeah, I have interest in both of them in tournaments. Sanchez, obviously, in a really good matchup in a good park against Miami. Uh, he's kind of reinvented himself, has that good splitter changeup that he throws that gets some swings and misses. And, he should be fine in the spot against Miami. Riskier matchup for Caleb Smith, but the guy has insane, he's really good at getting swings and misses, really good at getting strikeouts. So far through his first 3 starts this year, striking out 11 per 9. Last year, struck out 10.2 per 9 innings for a 27% strikeout percentage. He's not bad against righties either. Obviously you prefer lefties to go against lefties, but he has had enough success against righties where I'm not I'm not overly concerned there. I just wish he was a little bit cheaper for what is a difficult matchup in terms of strikeout upside and just in terms of, opponents faced.
Well, that's what's going to make it interesting, because on DK, you have a whole group of guys crowded here. Ross Stripling, tough matchup against Milwaukee. German Marquez, we'll get to Coors in a second. Carlos Rodon, we'll talk about that one. Caleb Smith, Aníbal Sánchez, we talked about them. They're separated by $500. Throw in Marco Gonzales. And Marcus Stroman and Eduardo Rodríguez, and you have a real crowded group of guys here, similar to what I mentioned there on Yahoo at the top of the show. And those guys are all relatively priced within $500 to $700 on FanDuel as well. So there is not an obvious misprice on any of the sites. There are some cheaper pitchers, but of course, if you are clicking on those names, the pucker factor is going to be high. Let's go on next here to German Marquez and Velasquez going against each other in Coors Field. I think this is a difficult enough spot with the reinforcements that came back for the Rockies, especially from the left side of the plate in Thursday's matchup. And Marquez going against a lineup that has 2 amazing bats from each side of the plate in the Philadelphia Phillies, assuming that I can't remember what Gene Segura's status is, but they've got Real Muto and Reese and Odubel Herrera and Bryce Harper, etc. I don't really think I want to go to those guys, but there is, of course, going to be somewhat of an 8 o'clock slate here that has 4 games on it. So thoughts at all here? Because if we don't like the pitchers, they're good enough that I don't think we're going to like the hitters in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Marquez is cheap enough that, especially on the shorter slate, I'd have some interest because he's just better than his price tag. It is a tough matchup against Philly. On a full slate, I don't really feel the need to get there because pitcher ownership is going to be spread out enough that, getting a low on Marquez isn't that important, and there's just spots that I'd feel a little bit better going to. But on the shorter slate, that's fine. I do think that Velasquez for me will depend on the Colorado lineup, but I do think there is upside for Colorado now that they have Dahl and McMahon back. That's 2 power lefties that can do some damage to Velasquez in addition to Blackmon, Arenado, and Story.
All right, let's see what else we have here. Ross Stripling going into Milwaukee. I believe that the Amazing Randy on, although the Amazing Randy's a different person, not the guy that was on American Idol, but I'm going to have to say this is going to be a no for me, dog. Ross Stripling, that's a tough matchup for him. We like him in good spots, but he's getting a double hitter. He's getting the pitching downgrade, and he's going against a formidable lineup, so I don't think I want to go that route. Let me see here. His opposite is Yolis Chacin, who we know is good against righties, but he's going to be facing a bunch of lefties here from the Dodgers. So I think the Dodgers all of a sudden become an intriguing stack. Moving over to Seattle in Los Angeles, taking on the Angels of Anaheim. What do you think here about Gonzales, depending on who we saw sit from the projected lineup on Thursday night to who's actually playing for the Angels? They had some key hitters out of the lineup, but they also have Mike Trout in this one. How are you feeling about Marco Gonzales? And it's a surprise that that Justin Bour wasn't in the lineup, considering it's a lefty-lefty matchup on Friday.
Yeah, I don't really like taking guys against Gonzales, with the exception, obviously, of Mike Trout, but I just don't really want to roster him here either. He's not a high strikeout guy. The Angels don't strike out. on a full slate here with 28 pitchers minus weather. I don't feel like I need to pay up for Gonzales to hopefully go 6 or 7 innings.
All right. Ugh.
I think I actually have more interest in this game in Felix Pena, depending on the Mariners lineup.
That's what I'm trying to look at here next. So Pena, bit of he does have some strikeout upside. So going back to his last 300 right-handed hitters faced, he has a 25% strikeout rate. The parts we don't like, he's got a 1.5 home run per 9, but he's walking only 5% of them. So that's nice. If we flip that and see how he's doing against opposite-handed hitters here, he's got a 20% strikeout rate against lefties. He's got a 12% walk rate, just a 1.3 per 9 home run rate. He's reasonable here, Adam, and I didn't think I was going to say that, but I'm liking the way it's shaping up for him. The ballpark is in his favor. It's not a bad place to pitch there in Anaheim. And just looking at who the Mariners are probably going to run out. Was Haniger in the lineup on Thursday?
He was. Bruce was not.
Okay, so Haniger should be back to health, being back to healthy, but and the Mariners do have a good lineup per se, but at some point, some of these guys are going to come back to their true talent levels. They can't all be on a hot streak all season. What would be the break point for you before you'd turn away from Pena on the full slate?
It depends on the lefties. Like if the only power lefty in the lineup is Jay Bruce, then I have some interest because, it's still a dangerous spot. Like Haniger, Santana, and Encarnacion obviously all have power, but Pena is better against righties, and he does have strikeout stuff, and those guys will strike out. If the only lefties are, like Malik Smith, Narvaez, and D. Gordon, they're not power hitters, so I'm not as concerned about them. Like they'll probably put the ball in play. They might get some hits, but with how cheap Pena is, and despite there being a ton of good pitching on the slate, there's not much interesting cheap pitching. But if you were to get like Bruce plus Vogelbach in there, in addition to like Smith, Narvaez, and Gordon, that one extra lefty with power and Vogelbach would be enough to make me back off a little bit.
All right. And with the way the Mariners have turned over their lineup so dramatically, and I mean, Pena's only pitched a couple years in the majors, even though he's approaching his 30th birthday. But of the current Mariners, they only have 15 combined at bats against him. That's a little bit intriguing, just because Pena is I don't know. He's one of those guys that third time through the order, he's probably getting his ass kicked. The first two times, it's a coin flip, and him at 6,500 on DK, that becomes SB2 consideration based on what else we're looking at here.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, back to our pricing list here. We have No, we're not going to talk about them. But let's talk about Eduardo Rodríguez. He's going against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay been on a bit of a tear, but Rodríguez flashed his tremendous upside in his last start, going 6 2/3 innings, 1 home run allowed, 2 earned runs, 8 strikeouts against, it was the Baltimore Orioles. I'm doing that just for you, Adam. On the season, he has an 8 ERA, only 15 strikeouts because he got knocked around a little bit there by Oakland and Seattle. But this is a matchup I'm willing to roll the dice on him for his price point at 7,800. We do know the strikeout upside exists. Him being a lefty, although he has not been as good against lefties as one would expect, I still think it helps neutralize some of the better hitters there on Tampa Bay. What do you want to do here with Rodríguez?
I really like him. It's a park upgrade for him pitching in Tampa. The price tag's not egregious. There are good hitters on Tampa Bay, but there are also some strikeouts there. And most of the good hitters on Tampa Bay are left-handed with, Meadows and Choi, Brandon Lau, a lefty, Kiermaier's a lefty for whatever that's worth. Like Tommy Pham and to some extent Yandy Diaz are the only good right-handed hitters on this team. So, like Garcia has power, Zunino has power, but I think Rodríguez has the advantage here, especially with the game being in Tampa.
He's probably going to be one of my more owned pitchers just at first glance here.
Yep.
Depending on what we end up doing with Verlander and how intently we want to get him on the bulk of our rosters. That'll probably be one of our many decision points that we have. Reminder, you can get all the help you need behind the paywall here. Again, we got the deep dive article. We have projections, ownership projections. We have ownership projections for all three of the main sites, including Yahoo. We have individual player rankings done by Alex Baker himself, and then projections. By the way, those are Alex and Tom putting those together and sharing their model. So good times to be had for all. With a little help from the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, you get 25% off any 1 month package. Check it out. You can also include the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. The 50% doesn't come off on the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, but that's already at a discount courtesy of Fantasy Cruncher. So check that out. Promo code EARLYBIRD. Throw out some names here, Adam, because they're just fun to say. Touki Toussaint, Anthony Desclafani. Desclafani nowhere near as intriguing as Toussaint unless he gets an entirely right-handed lineup. But let's break down those guys. Throw in Matt Strahm going against Desclafani as well.
Yeah, nothing really of interest for me. Toussaint has good stuff, but just feels like too big of a slate for me to really get to him. Same goes for Matt Strahm. And then Desclafani should get a pretty much all right-handed lineup against San Diego. $7K price tag is okay as an SP2. I imagine I'll end up with some, but it's more of a price play than anything.
For having as many pitchers as we do, I like these. These are the tough decisions because a lot of people aren't going to be doing this or doing the same things you may be willing to do. It's baseball. Weirdness can happen. And it just, I don't know. I seem to do better embracing the variance in baseball than I do with any of the other sports. Little concern here for our buddy Adam Wainwright. Let's see, the site I've pulled up is just consolidating his first three starts for pitching speed, but his fastball is down pretty much 2 miles per hour from any other April that he has had in the last 6 years. His other pitches also a bit of concern. They're down a little bit as well. What do you want to do with the, good God, what is he, a 37-year-old veteran now? I'm pulling that number out of thin air. I'll confirm that.
I want to not be anywhere near him.
How old is Adam Wainwright? Oh, see, Adam Sandler came up first. What the hell? 37. Look at that. Mind like a steel trap. Mind like a steel trap. So no excitement there from you. We've got Aaron Brooks. Question mark going against Toronto. That is the one upside. Marcus Stroman on the other side. He is the pitching extreme splits extraordinaire. Do you like either of those guys out there in O.co?
I have some interest in Stroman against the right-handed heavy Oakland lineup. He's a good real-life pitcher, does a good job limiting damage, but also has some strikeout potential. He's thrown his slider about 40% of the time to righties this year, getting an 18.5% swinging strike percentage. There's some upside there, and it's a reasonable price tag. So I don't mind that. And then I really don't mind getting to Aaron Brooks either on two-pitcher sites because Toronto is just not very good offensively, despite what Michael Pineda would have you believe. And Brooks has been, decent this year, especially against right-handed hitters. So it will depend for me what the Toronto lineup looks like. He's thrown his slider about 27% of the time to righties this year, a nice 17% swinging strike percentage. The problem is that to lefties, he's getting no swings and misses, and he's getting absolutely blown up. Changeup has been really ineffective with just a 6% swinging strike percentage, a 4.54 expected WOBA, and a 2.13 expected ISO. So it'll depend on the lineup. Like if you get the lineup with Sogard at the top, followed by Galvis, Smoke hitting 4, Rowdy Tellez hitting 6, Billy McKinney in there somewhere, then I'm probably going to shy away from Aaron Brooks. But if we get an extra righty in there somewhere, then I'd have some interest.
All right. Stroman, over his last 700 fellow righties faced, he has a 60% ground ball rate. Over his last, nearly 700 lefties, he has a 64% ground ball rate. Those are some pretty insane numbers. That's right up there with Luis Perdomo, dude. I'm sad that we don't have Luis Perdomo in our lives at the moment. But anyway, just wanted to call that out because that's one of the more extreme splits that we get to see. All right, we're down to the dregs officially. Jake Junis going against what's becoming a more and more watered down Yankees lineup day by day. Feels a little bit like playing with fire. You have CC Sabathia going against Kansas City. Kind of interested in Sabathia. Now, he had about as perfect a start as he could have against the White Sox, Adam. 62 pitches, allowed 1 hit, no walks, 3 strikeouts. And of course, because he only allowed the 1 base runner, didn't get very many negative ticks off of his points. And he managed a 16.7 DraftKings point performance on just 62 pitches. That I don't think is replicable. However, 7,200, he is in play. We know that Kansas City strikes out more than they have traditionally over the last couple seasons. What do you want to do with either of these hurdlers?
I like them both to different extents and for different purposes. Like, I think it's really unlikely that Sabathia gets blown up here. He's good at limiting damage against him. There's nothing really to be concerned about in the Kansas City lineup outside of Merrifield, Mondesi, and to some extent Jorge Soler. But I also don't know how deep he goes into the game, and he just doesn't have a ton of strikeout upside anymore. He just basically is really, really good at avoiding hard contact and getting soft outs. So his price tag's cheap enough where just from a run prevention standpoint, I think he's fine as an SP2. On the other side with Junis, obviously more risk because he does give up a lot of home runs, but I think there's a higher ceiling too, and he probably comes at much lower ownership because people just trust Vegas. And you have Kansas City right now with a 3.5 implied run total, the Yankees at 5. People are going to choose Sabathia over Junis, but Junis, since the start of last season, a 13% swinging strike rate to righties. He's allowed a 200 ISO as well, so he gets a lot of swings and misses. He gives up a lot of power, but with this lineup being watered down, like you said, it's a little less scary. And then there's 7 right-handers in the projected lineup, and they all have, with the exception of LeMahieu, they all swing and miss. So I think that it's actually a pretty nice spot for Junis. At least from a ceiling standpoint. I'd rather roster Junis than Pena. I'd rather roster Junis than Desclafani. I think I'll have a lot of Jake Junis.
All right. That is one I'm looking forward to hearing you talk about yet again on the deep dive to see if you have dug into that any further and changed your thoughts, because sometimes it can happen. It can happen. That hits most of our notable names here. I feel like I'm missing one or two, so let me close some of these windows. Oh, Jordan Zimmermann, of course. How could I not mention Jordan Zimmermann? All right, I've talked about him enough there. 4 home runs allowed in his last 7 innings, 10 runs, 9 of them earned. He has scored exactly -1/2 fantasy points, but he's coming off 2 starts prior to that where he racked up 20 plus DK points. Those were in Toronto. All right, well, we'll give him a congratulations. He took care of business there. And then one was against the Yankees before they had lost they hadn't quite lost as many guys to the DL as they have at this point. There's quite the bifurcation of outcomes here, Adam. What do you want to do with Jordan Zimmermann at 6,500?
I don't like him as much as I like Junis. He's kind of in the Felix Pena boat for me where, if I get some as an SP2, like he certainly can get strikeouts against the White Sox, but I think I'd actually rather get to some like Yohan Moncada and Yonder Alonso.
All right. I think that is literally all of the viable names we have here. Anything you wanted to add for Strom or Toussaint? Or, yeah, that's really it.
I'll add Carlos Rodon to the list.
Okay. Okay, there you go.
In the same price point, same category as Sanchez and Caleb Smith, where the matchup's really appealing against Detroit outside of like Castellanos and Miggy. There's not a whole lot to worry about. He's throwing his slider between 40 and 50% of the time this year, getting plenty of swings and misses. Doesn't hold runners well, can struggle with his control at times, but the stuff is good. 22.5% swinging strike percentage to righties on his slider this year, which he's thrown 40% of the time. So there's upside there. I don't feel much differently between Rodon, Sanchez, and Caleb Smith.
Yeah, the other thing to say is he's faced 23 batters in 3 of his 4 starts, 27 in the other. That's quite a few gamers. He has gone since start number 1, 101, 103, 111, and 112 for his pitch count. I like that. He should at least be able to hang around and see the lineup 3 times. I don't know if he'll make it into the 6th inning, but he should see the lineup enough for that. So good one there, Adam. Thank you. I'll have to keep my eye on him there. But that's going to do it for us tonight, gamers. Again, for not even 4 hours. It'll probably be closer to 5.5 hours of MLB coverage on the YouTube channel on Friday, breaking down this very robust 14-game slate. But that will start off around 9:15 with the DFS strategy show. Then we will move on to the special Friday edition of the Yahoo baseball focused show. And then, of course, we've got the deeper dive and live before lock for the 2 hours and 15 minutes before lock. So we got you covered, gamers. We got you covered. Definitely come on in, check us out. Remember, Awesemo. Go over to YouTube, search Awesemo, click on that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and you'll know every time we go live. With that, you can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS on Twitter. I am at EMACDFS, and of course, it is Awesemo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.